Prabhupada Srila 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 Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityalila Padishta Paramhansa Srila Gokishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityalila Padishta Satchidananda Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nityalila Padishta Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauri Vedanta Charya Srila Bhakti Vijayabhushan Prabhu Ki Jai. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Srila Narottam Srinivas Shamananda Prabhu Taya Ki Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Sar Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sri Damodar Roy Ramananda Shri Gopal Shri Vinda Ki Jai. Namatarja Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Ki Jai. Janti Maya Purishi Mantaji Kudunati Mataji Koladi Putuji Janati Mantajumati Kudu Pama Krishnavati Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Gogopadan Vadasudhanavaka Shri Braj Mandala Ki Jai. Shri Shamakund Radhakan Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Yogamaya Purnamasi Ki Jai. Gopishwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Shakati Ki Jai. Shri Purushottam Chaitra Ki Jai. Srila Bhagavan Ki Jai. Bhakta Prabhu Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai. Gantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sadrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Trishe Namaha Nityanandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalo Kalmashanashaya Janava Pataye Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshay Kshiptascha Kamari Taranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Numaste Charanar Vindam
Brindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavajai Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable, beloved Diksha Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Ashtatara Sata Sri Srila, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable, beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Ashtatara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak, Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. And Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Ashtatara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta, Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Shri Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavas. So we're continuing with the third quality of pure devotional service, the third characteristic of pure devotional service. Remember what that is? Anyone?
Happiness and Krishna consciousness? Is some appropriate phrase or something like that?
He says, pure devotional service automatically puts one in transcendental pleasure. Does that sound attractive? Does that sound like a good deal?
Absolutely.
See, all these statements here are telling us why we should do this. And you can't find this anywhere else, actually, isn't it? Can you find this anywhere else? That just by doing pure devotional service, it brings immediate relief from all kinds of material distress. All kinds. Do they have any such thing available in the material world through any channel?
Drug.
Education channel? I'm glad you mentioned that. Immediate, temporary relief, isn't it?
Yeah.
Huh? Is that true, Prashad Prabhu?
Let's see, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, there's a feeling of that, but then you have to do it again right away, and then there's so many sufferings that come from that.
Yes.
Addiction.
Yes, exactly. So it's not the actual solution, is it? And I think everybody who has become an addict knows that, is it not? Why do they have these different programs like Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, all kinds? Why? Because people are suffering like anything due to that addiction. And they're not getting relief. No, they're just getting like some temporary illusion of relief.
It's a ball and chain, and the ball gets heavier and heavier and
Yes. Yes. But in this case, there's no any other thing other than relief. True relief, as we read, as we were reading. As we were reading, true relief. Why? Because the very cause of all of the suffering is now going to be addressed and mitigated. Isn't it? Huh? The very cause. And what's the cause? Sinful activities. Did we not study that? The 4 different stages of sinful activities is the cause of material suffering. There's no other cause. It's that which we ourselves have performed in so many, many lifetimes due to what?
Iron mind.
Yes, but what's the root?
Ignorance?
Ignorance. Avidya. Avidya. That's the first thing that covers the conditioned soul when he wants to turn away from Krishna, right? You know that, I love this song. It's one of my favorite songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Jeev Jago. Huh? Jeev Jago. Jeev Jago. Gaura Chandra Bole. Gaura Chandra himself is calling out to us, all the conditioned souls in this material creation. He is calling out to them, "Oh Jivas, wake up, wake up. Koto Nitra Jaomaya Pishachira Kole." How long are you going to go on sleeping in the lap of the witch called Maya? How long? How long are you going to keep doing that, huh? He's asking to the jivas. You've been doing it for a really long time. And I'm wondering, how long are you going to keep doing this? Because when you're sleeping in the lap of a witch, is that a very safe and comfortable situation? Why is he using the word pishachi? Pishachi actually means witch. Witches were known, we heard about that in Krishna book, that they've always been around. And what do they always do?
They eat children.
They eat children. That's one of their activities. But if you decide, "Oh, dear witch, you're my friend. I'm going to trust you, putting my head in your lap," what will the witch do? Will the witch say, "Oh, look at this poor suffering jiva. I want to help this poor suffering jiva to be alleviated from all suffering"? Is she going to do that?
No.
Is she our friend? No. She will immediately start inflicting sufferings. And witches, yeah, everybody's saying they trick you.
They suck blood also.
They suck blood and they eat the flesh also. That was Putana, also was in that category. Just imagine, such an evil creature in that category. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, how long will you go on? Then he says, Bajibo bolio eshe samsara bitore, bulia rohile tumi avidyara bode. That when you began your journey in this particular body, and you were in the womb of your mother, you made a promise at that time. We know about this from the 3rd canto, right? Lord Kapila Dev. He has clearly shown that what happens to that jiva who is now in the womb and a new human body is developing. The most fortunate possible situation for the jivas in the material world. They're developing a human body. I actually saw a computer animation, which was amazing, recently. I just saw it. They actually have a computer animation, and they speed it up, and they show exactly how the fingers are starting to manifest and all of this. It's very amazing to watch. But of course, we know something that they don't know. We know from Bhagavatam that at the point of 7 months, then the child becomes conscious. Before that, sleeping, not aware, not aware. But when the child becomes conscious, then what happens? He realizes that he's suffering. He experiences so much suffering. And it's very clearly told what the sufferings are caused by. If the mother eats something that causes some indigestion, there are worms inside of the womb. They're biting the very, very delicate skin. This is a very suffering situation. The ordinary people nowadays, they have some kind of idyllic idea, right? Like, what's that called? They try to mimic being in the womb. I remember I was in Hawaii one time, and the devotees, they have some kind of like healing center there on Maui, and they have this, it's a kind of enclosed, like a capsule that you go inside, and you're actually, you're floating, and you're not wearing any clothes or anything, and you're just, it's in water. It's in a kind of salty, warm water, and you're just like, and it's supposed to be mimicking the peaceful situation.
They need to put some worms in the water. Me and Abhidhamma Maharaj did one of those.
Who? Yeah, Abhidhamma Maharaj. Yeah, he probably did.
We did it in Bali.
No, in Bali.
Stretch out there. If they want to mimic, they have to compact them.
Yeah. So the point is that, they have no information and knowledge that we have from Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. Oh. Okay. So, anyway, Mahaprabhu is telling that when you were there in the womb, at that time, you made a promise. You said, Bajibo. Bajibo Bolia. You spoke these words, I will worship you. Oh my Lord, I will worship you. Just please release me. And there's like, this goes on for a couple of months actually, where the child is aware. And the child has understood as well. Somehow Krishna gives some realization to the jiva in that condition, to the pious jiva, that you have caused this by so many sinful actions from many, many lifetimes. Right? So the jiva, then at that time he prays and makes a promise. Oh, when I am released from this condition, I will worship you. But of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has also written another song describing what happens to the jiva. You know? Give the mic. Where's the mic? Oh, yeah. And also in Lord Kapila's teachings also described.
So that when the soul newly arrived in the home of the parents, it's immediately given so much affection and feels itself the center of all that attraction, and then relishes all that love and affection, thinking of itself then as the center, and so much love I'm having from these people, and thus forgets his promise and just enjoys life in a new family.
Yeah, but also preceding that, the traumatic experience of being pushed through the birth canal is so horrendous that he practically just loses consciousness. Huh? And then comes there in this pitiful condition, comes out, and all can do is cry and cry. And by that force, the jiva begins to forget. But then, as you described, he enters into that whole new situation where he forgot. So Mahaprabhu is reminding us in this song. He's actually doing that. That's Mahaprabhu, who is reminding all the jivas who all went through this many, many times, and they'll go through it many, many more times in the future, if they don't take advantage of what Mahaprabhu has come to do for us. So then he says, no wait, Bulya rohile tumi avidyara bore. You came into this condition of avidya, ignorance. So then he says, Enechi, that means I have brought. Enechi aushadhi maya nashi baralaki. I have brought the aushad, medicine, even in Ayurvedic, called aushad. Aushadhi maya. Maya nashi baralaki. I have brought this medicine by which this ignorance can be destroyed. Then he says, Harinam Maha Mantra Lao Tumi Magi. This is the Harinam Maha Mantra. 16 words, 32 syllables. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And I have brought this medicine by which all illusion and maya will be destroyed. Nashi Baralagi. So, take this Harinam Mahamantra. Lao to me, Magi. Now, you request this from me. Then he says, what's the next? We have the songbook open. He says, Ami Vina Bandhuar. No.
Other than me, there's no one.
Yes, but there's, what's that first, that total verse? I'm forgetting.
The one after that.
No. No, that's the last verse. The verse in which he says, Ami Bina Bandhu Ar. Ah, yes, okay. That's the next verse. Tomara loite ami hoinu avatar. This means, I have descended. I have become this avatar. I have come for this purpose. I have descended. Hoinu avatar. For what? Your deliverance. Tomara loite. For your deliverance. Ami vina bandhuar kya chetumar. Other than me, who is there that is really your bandhu, really your friend? Anybody else? Can anybody else release you from this condition? Rescue you? Save you? No. Only me. Mahaprabhu is telling that. Ami bina bandhuar kya chetumar. Besides me, who else is there? Then he says, what? Next verse. Oh, okay, we missed that one. That's before that one. Then Charane Pariya. I have, this Bhaktivinoda Thakur has fallen at the feet of this avatar, this Gauranga avatar. Say Harinam Mantra Loilo Magia. Yes? Loilo Magia. And I have begged at the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu for this Mahamantra.
Maharaj, isn't there a certain point in that song where Mahaprabhu says, take this medicine, I beg you?
Yes, that's what we just, he's begging to us. Yes. Loy, no. What is that line again? Ami Bina Bandhuar. The first verse. The first line of that verse. Yes. Yes. No, it's in Enechio Shaudi Maya Nashi Bara Lagi Harinam Mahamantra Lao to me Magi. Magi is first person. So Mahaprabhu is requesting, now accept this. I request you to accept this. Lao means you accept this. Yes, that's fact. So, the relief from material distress. This is the key. I said this the other day. If the world only knew this one spiritual philosophical truth, that everyone is suffering because of what? Forgetting Krishna. And after forgetting Krishna, then they become captured by Maya, and then they begin to perform sinful activities. So, it's very essential to understand that that is the cause of my suffering. Whatever the suffering may be, it's always brought back to that, sinful activities. Of course, we get from pious activities, we also get. But both sinful and pious activities keep us in the material world. That you have to again take another birth, then take another birth. The whole chain of samsara. So pure devotional service. Pure, not impure, not mixed. Pure devotional service brings immediate relief from all kinds of material distress. And we've experienced that in our lives. We certainly have. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. And the second one, characteristic, pure devotional service, is the beginning of all auspiciousness. And what a spectacular purport Srila Prabhupada gave for that section. Amazing. So the third one is Sundaratma Vishesha.
No, not the third one. The third one, no, that one is Sandrandatma Visheshatma, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's go over the verse. Kleshagni Shubhada. Kleshagni Shubhada. No, I don't remember the verse.
Oh, but you're talking about receiving happiness, so that would be
Sandrandatma.
Sandranatma.
Yes. Visheshatma. That's in the stage of bhav. Well, like here, though in the stage of bhav, the number 5 is those in, no, that's in the stage of praying. Those in pure devotional service deride even the conception of liberation. Yes. And then pure devotional service only means to attract Krishna. Krishna akarshani sada. So yes. Number 3, pure devotional service automatically puts one in transcendental pleasure, in the stage of bhav. This is referring to the stage of bhav, number 3. And number 4 is pure devotional service is rarely achieved, sudurlabha. Yeah. So we're hearing about how pure devotional service automatically puts one in transcendental pleasure. And we were reading about the mystic yoga process and how through the mystic yoga process one can achieve a kind of happiness. Rupa Goswami is analyzed and he says there are basically 3 categories. Number 1, happiness derived from material enjoyment. Number 2, happiness derived by identifying oneself with the Supreme Brahman. And number 3, happiness derived from Krishna consciousness. So then Prabhupada began to talk about how the Mayavadi impersonalist sannyasis, they come down to the material level. Because although they have achieved some impersonal realization, they have not achieved actual happiness there. Therefore, they have to come back down to the material plane and do mundane welfare work and so forth.
And then he talks about the mystic perfections and how modern science has also accomplished this to some extent. And then he talks about how in the categories of mystic perfection, there are certain processes which the material scientists have not yet been able to develop. And we talked about that going even against the law of nature. And prapti, siddhi, and so forth. Prakamya, kamavashayata. That's where we left off.
Magic.
Yes. Now, foolishly, people who are enamored of the glimmer of modern materialistic advancement are thinking that the Krishna consciousness movement is for less intelligent men. They think, I am better off being busy with my material comforts, maintaining a nice apartment, family, sex life. These people do not know that at any moment they can be kicked out of their material situation. Due to ignorance, they do not know that real life is eternal. The temporary comforts of the body are not the goal of life. And it is due only to darkest ignorance that people become enamored of the glimmering advancement of material comforts. Right? Due to what? Oh, very deep, dark ignorance. That's why they become enamored by it, because they don't have transcendental knowledge. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has therefore said that the advancement of material knowledge renders a person more foolish because it causes one to forget his real identity by its glimmer. This is doom for him because this human form of life is meant for getting out of material contamination. And by the advancement of material knowledge, people are becoming more and more entangled in material existence. They have no hope of being liberated from this catastrophe. I remember as the technology developed over these decades, right? And then people were all thinking, oh, how nice. Like Srila Prabhupada tells that story of the newspaper. You remember that one?
The coal miners?
And the coal miners. Can you tell that? You remember that? There was a Christian preacher. I think this was up in Scotland where it's really damp and cold, you know. And the Christian preacher, he was trying to convince these coal miners that they have to accept Jesus as their savior. Otherwise, they're going to hell. Right? He was preaching a little bit of fire and brimstone. And so then they just said, the coal miners, they said, so what is hell? Can you describe hell? And then he thought, yes, hell. It's a very dark place. It's very dark, and you're stuck there. And then
It's hot and it smells like sulfur.
it's hot, yeah. It's hot and dark.
And it smells like sulfur.
Yeah, smells like sulfur. And then what? Then what happened at that point?
And they said, oh, we're always in that condition, we're miners.
Yeah.
That's no problem.
This is,
We don't mind that.
we're already in such a condition.
We don't mind.
Where we go, it's dark, it's very hot. So then you have to think, how can I convince them? So then he thought, okay, there in hell, there are no newspapers. And then they said, no newspapers, okay, we'll surrender. Prabhupada told. And he's explaining it in relation to this point that so-called material advancement, you know, people become very attached. And he talked about that, how a person, they're always embracing their newspaper. Especially like even in India, the persons who work in the offices, then they go back and they commute on the train. They all have their newspaper. Or they're dozing and they have their newspaper embraced on their chest, on their lap like this. You know? So, but now, now Maya has really developed something completely captivating. People can't even put it down from their hand. They have to carry it everywhere. They have to always be in touch. They have to get lots of likes to stimulate that thing in the brain. What's it called? The dopamine or something. Yeah, right? And they can't even talk to one another without that being there. There's one video of a guy who preaches a lot to millennials. And there's a particular video of him talking to a whole audience of millennials and explaining to them how this is disrupting ordinary human exchanges from which we actually feel fulfillment. And then he's actually explaining how much addicted the people are, that when they are supposed to come in their corporate meeting room and have a corporate meeting, they all bring their phone and they put it there in front of them on the table. Or they're just waiting until the meeting starts and they're just working on the phone. They don't even relate with one another. And then they put it there on the table in front of them, and they kind of like start a little bit of a conversation with somebody, but their eyes always keep going down and looking there, which completely disrupts the actual exchange that's going on, right? And he went on and on like this. So Maya is very capable of inventing unlimited methodologies to completely trap the conditioned souls in illusion. So by the advancement of material knowledge, people are becoming more and more entangled in material existence. They have no hope of being liberated from this catastrophe. Catastrophe. And Prabhupada said that, yes, there's so much technology, and there will also be wars. You remember how Prabhupada predicted that. And he said this motor car civilization will be no more. Oh, Prabhupada, will there still be any technology, they asked the disciples. Some technology still be there, but not like now. And he said one thing that will happen is that the human population will completely reject the scientists who they now worship as being God. They can do anything. They will become so disgusted with what has taken place due to all this that they will completely reject it. And then they will become very, very receptive. Right? Prabhupada told that. It will be very good time for preaching. Because when people are suffering, then they're looking for hope. And that's already starting. So, then we read the verse. Oh, no, we didn't read this one. In the Hari Bhakti Suttodaya, it is stated that Prahlad Maharaj, a great devotee of the Lord, prayed to Nrsingadev, half man, half lion incarnation, as follows. My dear Lord, I repeatedly pray unto your lotus feet that I may simply be stronger in devotional service. I simply pray that my Krishna consciousness may be more strong and steady, because happiness derived out of Krishna consciousness and devotional service is so powerful that with it one can have all other perfections of what? Religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and even the attainment of liberation from material existence. So Prabhupada's explaining that actually a pure devotee does not aspire after any of these perfections, because The happiness derived from devotional service in Krishna consciousness is so transcendental and so unlimited that no other happiness can compare to it. So when I was reading this as a new devotee, I said, yeah, I'm in the right place. It is said that even one drop of happiness in Krishna consciousness stands beyond comparison with an ocean of happiness derived from any other activity. Just one drop. Thus, any person who has developed even a little quantity, just a little quantity of pure devotional service, not a lot, just a little, but what kind of devotional service? Pure devotional service. Yeah? Any person who has developed even a little quantity of pure devotional service can very easily kick out all the other kinds of happiness derived from what? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. All of that gone. There was a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya known as Kolavecha Sridhar, one of our favorites, who was a very poor man. He was doing a small business selling cups made from the leaves of plantain trees, and his income was almost nothing. Still, he was spending 50% of his small income on the worship of the Ganges, and with the other 50%, somehow he was living. Lord Chaitanya once revealed himself to this confidential devotee, Kolavecha Sridhar, and he offered him any opulence that he liked. But Sridhar informed the Lord that he did not want any material opulence. He was quite happy in his present position, and he wanted only to gain unflinching faith and devotion unto the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. That is the position of pure devotees. If they can be engaged 24 hours each day in devotional service, they do not want anything else. Not even the happiness of liberation or of becoming one with the Supreme. What's that called? Sayujya Mukti. In the Narada Pancharatra, it is also said that any person who has developed even a small amount of devotional service, he doesn't care a fig for any kind of happiness derived from religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, or the 5 kinds of liberation. He doesn't care a fig for that. Which kind of person? Who has developed even what? Small amount. Any kind of happiness derived from religiousness, economic development, liberation, or sense gratification, it cannot even dare to enter into the heart of a pure devotee. It is stated that as the personal attendants and the maidservants of a queen, they follow the queen with all respect and obeisances. Similarly, the joys of religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation follow the devotional service of the Lord. Automatically. They are attendants. In other words, a pure devotee does not lack any kind of happiness derived from any source. Best position. He does not want anything but service to Krishna. But even if he should have another desire, the Lord fulfills this without the devotee's asking. But we can also add to that his other so-called desire is just in lieu of serving Krishna, you see. So that's the discussion on that, the third quality, third characteristic of pure devotional service. Now we hear about the rareness of pure devotional service. Rare. If something is rare, is it valuable? Yes. Every single commodity, element in this world, which is rare, it becomes expensive, doesn't it? Yeah. And things that are not rare, they're given out very easily, attained very easily. So now he's talking about sudurlabha, how extremely rare. And this is the second quality in the stage of bhav. The second characteristic in the stage of bhav. So it's number 4. In the preliminary phase of spiritual life, there are different kinds of austerities, penances, and similar processes for attaining self-realization in the preliminary phase of spiritual life. However, even if an executor of these processes is without any material desire, he still cannot achieve devotional service. Did you hear that? Even if any person who is executing these different processes in the beginning of spiritual life, austerity, penance, like that, their aim is to attain self-realization. But even if an executor of these processes is without any material desire even, he still cannot achieve devotional service. We're talking about pure bhakti, uttama bhakti. That's not a preliminary qualification, being without any material desire, even if he is. To attain this stage of bhav bhakti, no. So, and aspiring by oneself alone to achieve devotional service is also not very hopeful, because Krishna does not agree to award devotional service to merely anyone. Krishna can easily offer a person material happiness or even liberation, but he does not agree very easily to award a person engagement in his devotional service. Devotional service can, in fact, be attained only through the mercy of who? A pure devotee. Only. There is no other way. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19, 151, it is said, quote, by the mercy of the spiritual master, who is a pure devotee, and by the mercy of Krishna, one can achieve the platform of devotional service. There is no other way. He's paraphrasing which verse? Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Latanij. Guru, essential. So the rarity of devotional service is also confirmed in the Tantra Shastra, where Lord Shiva says to Sati, my dear Sati, if one is a very fine philosopher, analyzing the different processes of knowledge, he can achieve liberation from material entanglement. By performance of the ritualistic sacrifices recommended in the Vedas, one can be elevated to the platform of pious activities and thereby enjoy the material comforts of life to the fullest extent. But all such endeavors, who's speaking this? Lord Shiva. To who? Sati. But all such endeavors can hardly offer anyone devotional service to the Lord, not even if one tries for it by such processes for many, many thousands of births. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also confirmed by Prahlad Maharaj that merely by personal efforts or by the instructions of higher authorities, one cannot attain to the stage of devotional service. What verse is that? Matirna Krishne Paratak Swatova Mito Vibhadyeta Griha Vritanam Adanta Gobir Vishatam Tamishram Punak Punak Charvita Charvanana. He's telling to Hiranyakashipu that no, you cannot gain, even by joint conferences, good instructions from others, your own analysis. This is not possible. Because what will happen? That Adanta Gobir Vishatam Tamishram. You cannot achieve on your own, because your unbridled senses will drag you down to Vishatam Tamishram, very dark situation in this world. And what will you be doing? Punak, punak, charvita, charvananam. Again and again, chewing that which has already been chewed. But then he tells, Naisham matistava urukramangrim sprishat yanarto upagamam yarartaha mahiyasam padarajo bishekam Niskinchananam navranita yava. As long as one has not bathed himself in the dust of the lotus feet of a Niskinchan pure Vaishnava, then he can never attain this. So this is the statements of Rupa Goswami. He's quoting from these various shastras, and we'll continue tomorrow with hearing about how Krishna consciousness is extremely rare. Gaur Premanandi. Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhu bhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radha Govinda Jiyo Ki Jai. Shri Gaur Arti Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Jugal Arti Ki